The future has always been fascinating. Trying to predict what's going to happen has been a mystical experience. We primitive humans have consulted priests and psychologists, palmists, astrologers, in an attempt to find out what's going to happen, to take the fear out of the unknown. But now, at the end of the 20th century, we've got a far better way of looking into the future. If we just peep behind the closed doors of the world's science laboratories, we can find out what's going to happen and affect our lives over the next 10, 20 or 30 years. This is what I'll be doing in the future book, and in the future video which will accompany it. I'll be looking at genetics, at artificial intelligence, and at the hundreds of sciences which are benefiting from these two important breakthroughs. I've included this video to give you an idea of my past broadcasting experience. Here's a few short clips. Well, what we've just heard was not actually a string quartet or even a duet, it was a computer. And inside this computer is stored the sounds of a violin and cello. Computer musical instruments are now becoming very common in both popular music and classical music, and they're able to emulate, to copy sounds of real instruments and reproduce them at will in programmed music. A lot of people today are talking about synthesizer bands. In fact, it's a bit of a misnomer. These things are computers in the fullest sense of the word, and they're capable of reproducing music from almost any source. They can listen to the real world, they can listen to the most bizarre sounds, and allow people or musicians to use it to enhance their music, to broaden their palette of musical sounds to the point that allows them to do almost anything. I, for example, can speak into this microphone. Well, I can say almost anything, but for the sake of demonstration, we'll say hello, hello, and then using the program piece we've just heard, it will play it back with hello. Well, it doesn't sound a lot like music, but I think it gives you an example of what I'm talking about. The instrument is capable of reproducing almost anything an artist wants to do. It can record every possible sound that's in the real world, and more artists are using it today to make hit records, to make unusual sounds, and to create things that were never possible before. 100. That's it, press the return. Go on, there it goes. You see, and you've now taught it to do that, and it will remember.
Well, see, now that would be very useful, but really the thing I need most is information. I need things like, you know, I do the sandwich quiz.
Yeah.
Well, those current affairs questions, they're a devil to think of,
Okay.
so I've got to think of things like that. I need
Right.
News.
Oh, I know.
I need to be able to store my shopping lists.
I brought quite a lot along because I didn't really know what you wanted.
Yes.
And I've got one down here that I've been working. In fact, it's a prototype. I have to warn you.
Wonderful.
It's got a few funny chips in it. So,
Chipped? Oh, I don't want anything
No,
second-hand.
it's a silicon chip.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
All right.
I'm so sorry.
That's the one that's at
Shall I
the
move-
basis.
is it all right to move the
Yes,
Edinburgh
take that
turkey?
away. Right, this is the one. Now, I've been working on this one, and if you really want, I mean, it is a prototype, you
Yes.
understand?
Yes.
Right, it's brand new, it hasn't been tested, but if you'd like me to, I think you can get the information and the help you want out of this
Could
one.
it draw pictures and things like
You
that?
can
for
draw
me?
pictures, tell you what's going on in the world, give you the news, also play games if you want it to.
How wonderful.
Do
Would
the
it be difficult to
microwave.
operate?
Oh, do all sort. No, you can just press one button and it'll work. Very,
Yeah.
very easy.
I'll leave you to get on
All
with
right,
it.
well, I'll work on this.
You sure it wasn't you I played past the orange with?
No, it wasn't me, Ethel.
I wonder who it was.
Well, see you later.
How do you feel about that, John Julius, using this for classical music?
Well, I don't know quite how you'd start. It's so difficult playing classical music anyway, isn't it? I mean, it seems to me you'll make it infinitely more difficult still by doing it on this. You've still got to get your scales and your runs and your things. Somebody's still got to play the thing.
No,
Seems-
not necessarily.
No, that's not true.
Well,
That
I
really
use
is not
I use a
true.
computer
you
keyboard.
program the whole thing from the very beginning.
Yes, with
But
numbers.
What interpretation do you program? Do you program a noise track interpretation? or
Well, no, in
somebody-
fact, if you start off with a computer, I mean, for example, the musical type keyboard that's here is merely there for convenience. On many computers that Phil uses, it's just buttons, like an ordinary computer. But when you're programming a piece of music, you program all of the feeling that you can hear. I'll give you an example. A musician, and I'm not being rude to Phil,
need not necessarily be skilled on a given instrument, but may have a great deal of music inside them. And when they're programming the computer, much, not all, but much of the feeling that a very, very skilled musician can get out of an instrument can be programmed, so that when the computer plays it back, it has a great deal of feeling. It's very human.
I don't feel as much as if you were playing a violin then.
I think any computer program is merely an extension of programming skills.
Well, I think we're going to have to wait and listen to this feeling computer. We're going to have to actually leave you now. We'll be back with Good Morning Britain again tomorrow morning at 1:30.
As a parent and a computer enthusiast, Ray Hammond is a very angry man. He makes a living writing TV comedy scripts, but became involved with computers when his 6-year-old daughter showed an interest. And after researching the subject, he believes schools are making a complete mess of the job of introducing computers to young children. His book, Computers and Your Child, claims teachers are actually lagging behind the children they're supposed to be teaching. So we took him along to Cottersbrook Junior School in Acox Green, one of the schools that has introduced computers as part of an experiment by Birmingham.
I'm very impressed with this school. They're using computers and they're allowing children to explore the world with their computers. They're not using them as machines which are drilling the kids. It's the other way around. The only problem is that this school is very rare.
Ray Hammond, whose book Computers and Your Child has shot to the bestsellers list, is something of a computer guru, determined to cut through the jargon that surrounds the equipment he knows so well. Parents, he says, don't understand the computers that their children are now growing up with. Ignorance and confusion are creating, in his words, code junkies, and he feels it's time to lift the lid off the computer.
If we whip off the lid, inside there's an electrical circuit board. It's got chips placed on it, and these are the microchips that we've been hearing so much about. Now, the chip actually sits in the middle of these plastic cases. It's minute, maybe an 1/8 of an inch square, perhaps a 1/4 of an inch square. It's actually a collection of incredibly complex electronic circuits. They're made microscopically. Originally, they draw them out on sheets sort of this size, and then they etch them onto wafers of silicon from common sand. They discovered that it's a very good material for putting electronic circuits on. They reduced them through a microscopic process, and as a result, one of these tiny circuits is capable of remembering. And it's the ability to remember that is at the heart of all computing. I started off wanting to be a rock and roll star. You know, I joined bands and played bass guitar and grew my hair. That didn't really work out. I really wasn't very good at playing bass guitar. And I started to write about rock and roll music in Sounds and similar newspapers. And from there graduated as I grew older to writing about, I suppose, more serious things, but I'm not really putting down pop music when I say that. And that really led me to the conclusion that I wanted to write full time. Bobby Byte lives with his sister Susie, and Mummy and Daddy Byte deep inside a computer which is owned by Michael, a boy who likes to play computer games. Bytes are things which make up numbers and letters inside a computer. They can even draw pictures on the screen and help Michael play computer games. Bobby Byte enjoys drawing pictures and playing games, but one day Michael brought home a game that Bobby didn't much like.
What uses do computers have to writers like yourself?
A word processor is absolutely wonderful for writing a novel. In fact, Snoopy could really use one. In fact, there are some lesser-known authors, such as Harold Pinter, Dorothy Dunnett, Len Dayton, Tom Sharp, people like that, who are now writing exclusively on word processors. The real advantage is that you never finish what you're writing. Words are held electronically. They're not finished on paper. They're like a fluid well of words. You can actually move them around and manipulate them. And for somebody whose job it is to put words together in the most appealing form, the ability to constantly revise without having to retype or to get a secretary to do the typing, it's absolutely unbelievable. Word processing was a big discovery for me 5 years ago as a writer. Now the big discovery is online researching. That means plugging your home computer into the telephone lines and thence into the worldwide network of information. This is something you can do with any home computer, whether it's a Spectrum, a BBC, anything, any tiny computer. And what I can do from my home in Bath is plug into Palo Alto, California. That's right in the heart of Silicon Valley, in sort of the future strip down that side of California. Now,
very young children are able to use computers like this without worrying about all the computer jargon and the technicalities, and without becoming any of these eggheads. The thing really is, although you were kind enough to call Jane an expert, she's just like hundreds of kids, she's got thousands, who are now beginning to use, this is a turtle, it originated in America, although this particular model is called an Edinburgh turtle, because the University of Edinburgh developed it on the lines of the American one. And it allows children to understand how computers can move object, how computers can be programmed, and it helps them to understand how technology can come to us and to help us, rather than it being some sort of alien thing that everyone's scared of, you know, and sort of things that control space shuttles and the whole lot. It's not like that. It's a very friendly thing. And in writing Computers and Your Child, I was anxious that parents wouldn't be scared of it all. That was really
I must say, I think they are, to a lot of people in the older generation, a bit frightening, aren't they?
Well, somebody suggested I should have called the book Computers and Your Parent.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. And you should have given the books to the children to take home and share their parents. But, you know, teachers are also very concerned. I mean, I was going to say worried, but they are a bit concerned about the whole thing, because computers are arriving in schools in the cardboard boxes. And the teachers are thinking, oh, my goodness, next term I've got to get to grips with that. And while the teachers are thinking about it, the kids have ripped open the box and have got the thing out, they've got it all plugged up, and
they
they're
know all
showing...
about it,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, can you show... They're going to get more powerful, and they're going to become very much cheaper, all at the same time. If you put those two things together, you'll realise that most of us will be able to afford them, and because they're more powerful, they will be able to do many more things. As I said earlier, it will seem silly in a few years that we were even discussing it. They'll be all around us. They really will be doing the washing up. They really will be cleaning the house. They'll be crawling around vacuuming, seeing the walls turning and coming back again.
What are we going to be doing?
I hope we're going to be using our brains. I hope we're going to be, if we're at leisure, I hope we're going to be able to do what we want to do inside, whether it's a sport, whether it's a creative activity, whether, frankly, it's just enjoying ourselves. I would like to think that we are freed from the labour. Why should life be full of labour?
Presumably, if you can think of that kind of scenario, governments must also be thinking about how to use the computer.
I think they are. In fact, a lot of people are very worried. They think it's all going to take us over and we can't change fast enough to adapt to it properly. In other words, because of our work ethic ingrained in us. It's this unemployment problem. I do believe profoundly that the principal cause of long-term unemployment in the developed world is the arrival of this machine intelligence. If we can duplicate our brain at work, clearly we're not going to have that type of work to do. And we are going to have, that's the biggest adjustment we have to make.
So the computer revolution is going to have a profound impact on our lives in the next 10, 20 years?
I believe it is the most profound of any revolution that's happened in mankind's history.
Well, I don't expect I'm going to come off quite so lightly after the future book is published. Prophets are always doomed to ridicule, and I'm bound to come in for more than my fair share. Despite that, I'm convinced that computer intelligence and genetic engineering are going to help us solve many of the world's most pressing problems. I want to demonstrate how they can do that, and that's what I'll be doing in the future book.